Well, if it is, it's disappointing, but it's not. It's not the end of the world. A lot of this is about the journey, and I know that's not my line or anything like that. I know people have said it before me, but all you can do is prepare your best and lay it all out there. There's I'm sure people that have won championships.
This is John Stockton, one of the greatest point guards to ever play the game. With his unmatched court vision, laser precision passing, and relentless defense, Stockton spent 19 years with the Utah Jazz, becoming the NBA's all-time leader in assists and steals. But what makes Stockton truly unique is his deep admiration for players who elevated his game and left a lasting impact on his legendary career. So let's take a closer look at the 6 players Stockton admired the most throughout his iconic career. But before proceeding, please take a second and hit that subscribe button and like this video. This will mean the world to us. Thanks. Mark Eaton, the towering protector. Eaton was a cornerstone of the Utah Jazz during their rise to prominence in the 1980s and early 1990s. At 7'4", Eaton wasn't your typical basketball prospect. In fact, he wasn't always destined for the NBA. Growing up in Southern California, Eaton had a passion for cars and worked as an auto mechanic before basketball came calling. It was only after some encouragement, most notably from Tom Lubin, a chemistry professor and part-time basketball coach, that Eaton decided to give the game a real shot. His path wasn't easy, though. His early basketball career was filled with doubt and uncertainty, yet what he lacked in finesse, he made up for in work ethic and sheer size. Before long, Eaton found himself at Cypress College and later at UCLA, overcoming adversity to develop into a legitimate NBA prospect. Drafted by the Jazz in the 4th round in 1982, Eaton entered the league as a raw and untested player, but it didn't take long for him to establish himself as one of the most feared defenders the game has ever seen. And his impact on the Utah Jazz was immediate and undeniable. By his second season, he was a force in the paint, leading the NBA with an astounding 4.3 blocks per game. But 1984 to 85 was the season that cemented his legacy. Averaging an insane 5.6 blocks per game, he set a single-season record that still stands to this day. For Jazz point guard John, Eaton wasn't just a teammate. He was the safety net who allowed Stockton to gamble defensively and take risks without fear of leaving the team vulnerable. "Mark made my life so much easier," John said in an interview. He erased mistakes with his presence in the paint, and his communication on defense was incredible. He was the anchor of everything we did. Stockton, known for his precision and basketball IQ, developed instant chemistry with Eaton on the court. The towering center's ability to set bone-crushing screens was the perfect complement to John's pick-and-roll mastery. His presence freed up Stockton to execute plays and control the tempo of the game, and that combination became the bedrock of the Jazz's defensive and offensive identity for over a decade. And their relationship was built not just on basketball, but on mutual respect and trust. He was never flashy, nor did he try to be. He focused on doing the dirty work, securing rebounds, protecting the rim, and making hustle plays that wouldn't show up on the stat sheet. And yet, Stockton quickly acknowledged that his contributions went beyond the numbers. Mark wasn't just a great player, he was a great person. He supported us all, no matter what, Stockton shared. His willingness to embrace his role made him stand out in an era defined by superstar egos. And off the court, John and Eaton's friendship grew. They bonded over their shared dedication to the game, their teammates, and the Utah community. He often remarked how Eaton's demeanor and leadership set an example for everyone in the locker room, creating a culture of accountability and hard work that the Jazz prided themselves on during their most successful years. And one of Eaton's most valuable traits as a teammate and player was his unwavering consistency, night in and night out. The Jazz knew they could count on him to deter shots at the rim and control opposing big men with his sheer size and impeccable timing. While Stockton and Malone garnered much of the spotlight, Eaton was the unsung hero who held everything together behind the scenes. And throughout the 1980s and early 1990s, the Jazz relied heavily on his ability to control the paint defensively. His battles with some of the league's premier big men, like Hakeem, Patrick Ewing, and David Robinson, were legendary. Though Eaton was never the most athletic player on the court, his intelligence and preparation gave him a competitive edge, and his ability to lead by example, whether it was through his commitment to film study or his relentless defensive effort, inspired the entire Jazz roster and helped them become perennial playoff contenders in a stacked Western Conference. And despite his individual and team success, his career was at times overshadowed by the flashier names of his era. Yet Stockton has never wavered in his defense of Eaton's importance to the Jazz and the game of basketball as a whole. Mark's impact on the court was immense, but his character off the court was even more impactful, Stockton said. He often spoke about Eaton's influence in the locker room, crediting him with helping to maintain harmony within the team during high-pressure situations. Mark Eaton retired in 1993 after 12 seasons with the Jazz, leaving behind a legacy as one of the greatest defensive players in NBA history. Though his number 53 jersey was rightfully retired by the Jazz, his contributions to the game have often gone underappreciated compared to those of his more celebrated contemporaries. But for Stockton, Eaton's place in basketball history is beyond dispute. Mark changed the game in his own way, Stockton declared. He was the foundation of everything we did in Utah. But hold on, everything we have covered about Mark Eaton wouldn't have been possible without this player. In fact, he was a key player to the Utah Jazz dynasty. Jeff Hornacek, the underrated sniper. As a master of technical shooting and precise decision-making, Jeff carved out his niche in the league through hard work, consistency, and a dedication to perfecting his craft. But before he became a trusted sidekick to Stockton, his story began with humble origins. Born in Elmhurst, Illinois, Hornacek wasn't heavily recruited out of high school, and his basketball journey was far from the typical path of an NBA star. After joining Iowa State University as a walk-on, Hornacek transformed himself into a key player for the Cyclones, setting the foundation for a future many didn't see coming. Even after being selected in the second round of the 1986 NBA draft by the Phoenix Suns, Hornacek was seen as a gamble rather than a surefire success, but that chip on his shoulder drove him to exceed expectations every step of the way. His early career with the Suns showcased his remarkable shooting abilities and basketball IQ, quickly earning him a reputation as one of the league's sharpest guards. His career took another turn when he was traded to the Utah Jazz in 1994, a move that paired him with Stockton and forever altered both their careers. At this point, Stockton was already a seasoned veteran, known for his pinpoint passing and unparalleled basketball mind. Hornacek's ability to shoot with extraordinary accuracy, particularly from three-point range, where he shot 40.3% over his career, made him the perfect complement to Stockton. Right from the start, he recognized how easy Hornacek fit into the Jazz's system, built around Stockton and Karl Malone's legendary pick and roll. Jeff just made everything work. He knew how to make the right cut, the right shot, or the right pass. He was a perfect teammate, Stockton once said, and what truly stood out about Hornacek was never just his shooting, but his intelligence and poise. He was a player who didn't get rattled in high-pressure situations. This trait became invaluable as the Jazz made their way to back-to-back NBA Finals appearances in 1997 and 1998. And throughout those playoff runs, Hornacek delivered clutch shots and made timely plays that kept Utah competitive against powerhouse teams like the Chicago Bulls. John often praised his ability to deliver when it mattered most, saying, "Horny wasn't flashy, but man, could he play." His court awareness and ability to read the game took us to another level. That quiet confidence, combined with his relentless work ethic, solidified his role as a key piece of the Jazz's success during those years. And what made him even more valuable to Stockton was his understanding of the game's rhythms and nuances. Hornacek was a cerebral player who understood how to create space, move without the ball, and easily fit into the Jazz's system. Whether it was spacing the floor for John's precision passes or coming through with a smooth jumper in crunch time, he became indispensable. And off the court, the mutual respect between them only grew stronger. In interviews, Hornacek spoke about how Stockton's dedication to the game inspired him to push himself even harder. Playing with John, you couldn't take plays off. His work ethic and competitive fire were contagious, Hornacek once said. And for Stockton, having a teammate like Hornacek was a blessing, as both men shared the same values of team-centric basketball and a tireless drive for improvement. Jeff Hornacek wasn't just a teammate. He was a key piece of what made Utah Jazz basketball so special during their golden years. Now, we move on to one of the greatest players of his era. In fact, without his presence on the court, the Celtics wouldn't have won a title. Larry Bird, the basketball genius. Known for his remarkable fundamentals and unmatched basketball IQ, Bird was the ultimate competitor. A 3-time NBA champion, 3-time MVP, and 12-time All-Star, Bird backed up every bit of the hype with his play on the court. But his genius wasn't just in his numbers. It was in the way he approached the game as a war of minds. Watching Bird play basketball was like watching a master chess player, thinking 5 moves ahead, manipulating defenses, and dismantling opponents without breaking a sweat. For Stockton, a player who prided himself on precision and intelligence, the chance to share the court with Bird was both a challenge and an inspiration, one that left a lifelong impression on him. And before they ever faced each other, Stockton had admired his rise from a small town in French Lick, Indiana, to global superstardom. His start wasn't easy. He grew up in poverty, enduring hardships that shaped his relentless work ethic. A brief stint at Indiana University didn't work out for Bird, so he returned home to reevaluate his path. And from there, he transferred to Indiana State, where he transformed into a full-fledged phenomenon, leading his team to an NCAA championship game in 1979. Although they lost to Michigan State and Magic, Bird proved he was ready for the next stage, and that same year, he became the face of the Boston Celtics, and the league would never be the same. Stockton later remarked on how he carried that underdog mindset with him in the pros, saying, "Larry played every game like he had something to prove, like he could hear people doubting him, no matter how many banners he won." Stockton saw that fire every time they faced off, and when Bird entered the NBA, he didn't just join a league, he transformed it. His rivalry with Magic brought the league back into the spotlight in the 1980s, and Bird's Celtics became a dynasty, winning NBA titles in 1981, 1984, and 1986. But Bird wasn't just a winner, he was an artist. Stockton often joked that Bird could dominate with a chalkboard in hand. Larry didn't just beat you, he made you think about how he was going to beat you. And even when you knew what was coming, there was nothing you could do to stop it, Stockton recalled. His unmatched skill set allowed him to excel in every aspect of the game. He averaged 24.3 points, 10 rebounds, and 6.3 assists for his career, numbers that Stockton admired but knew didn't fully capture his essence. Larry wasn't the fastest, the strongest, or the most athletic, but he had this way of controlling a game just by understanding it better than anyone else on the floor. He could see angles no one else could, Stockton said.
I remember as a rookie, he came in, he walked by our bench at the Salt Palace and said, "I feel like 43 tonight." And he came out, he scored 43 in the third quarter and checked himself out with a 20-point victory, and I was fairly impressed with that one.
Stockton vividly remembered one game where his Utah Jazz faced off against Bird's Celtics, and as the Jazz executed what Stockton believed to be airtight defense, Bird unleashed a behind-the-back pass that caught both defenders and teammates off guard, leading to an easy layup. That pass stuck with me because it wasn't just flashy. It was exactly the right play, at the right time, Stockton said. And what struck Stockton most about Bird wasn't just his stats, but how he carried himself with no fear. But it wasn't just his on-court brilliance that Stockton admired. It was his ability to inspire his teammates and elevate their game. Bird wasn't just great, he made everyone around him great. Stockton often pointed to Bird's leadership as a quality he tried to emulate. Despite his fierce competitiveness, Bird understood the importance of team success and had the ability to rally players behind a shared goal. Stockton spoke of his willingness to make sacrifices in the name of winning, saying, it didn't matter if he had to score 50 or set screens all night to get guys open. Larry always knew the best way to win, and he did it without asking for credit. And one of his favorite Bird moments came in the 1986 playoffs. Bird's Celtics faced the Atlanta Hawks, and Danny Ainge missed a critical free throw in the fourth quarter. Bird approached Ainge and calmly told him to relax. The team wasn't losing that game. Stockton watched as Bird took over, scoring, passing, and defending with surgical precision to lead Boston to victory. Moments like this etched themselves in Stockton's memory. Larry had a way of calming everyone down while absolutely owning the moment, Stockton said. And over the years, Stockton would call Bird the smartest player he ever faced, a man who could outthink everyone and still outwork them. Larry was never just incredible for his time. He'd be incredible in any era, Stockton said. Bird's approach to the game, combining intelligence, grit, and passion, became a blueprint for players like Stockton, who valued substance over flash. He taught me that heart and brains could take you further than anything else. That's a lesson I'll never forget, Stockton admitted. And to this day, Larry Bird remains one of the most revered figures in NBA history, and for good reason. For Stockton, he called Bird a once-in-a-lifetime player who showed the world that greatness wasn't about raw talent, but the ability to combine hard work, intelligence, and an unrelenting will to win. Karl Malone, the perfect partner, a relentless competitor and one of the most dominant power forwards the NBA has ever seen. Together, they created one of the most iconic and successful duos in basketball history, revolutionizing the pick and roll and epitomizing the essence of teamwork. Malone entered the league in 1985, fresh out of Louisiana Tech, where he had forged a reputation as a powerful and determined player. Drafted 13th overall by the Utah Jazz, he quickly made it clear that his combination of size, strength, and skill was going to be a nightmare for opposing defenses. And yet, what truly defined his rise to superstardom was the synergy he developed with John, a partnership that would stretch over nearly 2 decades and result in the Jazz's emergence as perennial contenders in the Western Conference. His career was the embodiment of dedication, consistency, and toughness. Early on, he earned the nickname the Mailman because he always delivered, night in and night out. From his incredible physical conditioning to his unmatched work ethic, Malone set the tone for what an elite power forward could be. A player's first few years in the league often define their trajectory, and his jump into NBA stardom came with the guidance of Stockton alongside him. His relentless scoring ability, paired with John's laser-precise passing, formed a devastating combination that opponents dreaded. Malone averaged more than 25 points per game for 11 consecutive seasons, finishing his career with over 36,000 points, making him the second highest scorer in NBA history. John played an instrumental role in that achievement, delivering pinpoint assists to Malone right where he needed them, whether it was for a thunderous dunk, a mid-range jumper, or a crafty finish in the lane. Karl was the most dependable player I've ever known. You could always count on him to carry us, John once recalled, emphasizing the trust and confidence he had in his partner. The pair's chemistry was unmatched, built on years of intense practice and an unbreakable trust that allowed them to anticipate each other's movements. He knew Malone's tendencies better than anyone, where he liked to catch the ball, how he would seal off defenders, and when he was most effective in transition. Their iconic pick and roll became the bread and butter of Utah's offense and one of the most unstoppable plays in basketball history. If Karl set the screen, you had 2 choices: get run over like a truck or give him the ball and watch him score, John joked in one interview. And despite the light-hearted jab, he always credited Malone's tireless dedication to both his personal growth and the team's success. Karl worked harder than anyone I've ever seen. He pushed me to be better every day, Stockton admitted. When reflecting on his achievements, it's impossible to separate his personal stats from the dynamic Stockton-Malone partnership. The duo carried the Utah Jazz franchise through the 1990s, reaching the playoffs every single year, making multiple deep postseason runs, and advancing to back-to-back NBA Finals in 1997 and 1998. And although they ultimately fell short of Chicago Bulls, their place in history as one of the greatest duos of all time was undeniable. Opponents often pointed out how difficult it was to defend against the seamless connections Stockton and Malone shared. Malone's brute strength and soft scoring touch complemented John's playmaking wizardry in a way that felt almost poetic. But beyond the on-court brilliance, what truly made their partnership special was the bond they shared off the court. They were often described as 2 sides of the same coin, with their mutual respect and camaraderie forming the foundation of their success. Whether it was riding the team bus or grabbing dinner after games, the 2 were inseparable teammates who admired each other's character just as much as their basketball talents. John would later reflect on Malone as more than a teammate. He described him as family. The patience, loyalty, and friendship they shared went beyond wins and losses. John often spoke about the trust they had in one another, not just on the basketball court, but in life. Karl wasn't just a player I passed to. He was a person I depended on. That meant more than basketball, Stockton shared in a heartfelt interview years after their playing days had ended. But his journey wasn't without its hurdles. Coming from humble beginnings in Summerfield, Louisiana, Malone grew up in a large family where he had to learn discipline and hard work at an early age. He often credited his upbringing for instilling in him the resilience and determination that carried him through his NBA journey. Those values were evident every time he stepped onto the basketball court. He was known for his tireless conditioning regimen and for never taking a day off, a mindset that resonated with Stockton's equally obsessive preparation. And together, they set a standard for longevity in the NBA, retiring as two of the league's most enduring and consistent players. And despite all their individual accolades, their legacies are forever intertwined, and their inability to secure a championship remains one of the most bittersweet what-ifs in NBA history. During an interview years after their retirement, John was asked about his memories of playing alongside Malone. His response embodied the deep respect he had for his longtime partner. Karl gave everything he had to the game, to me, to the team, to the city. If winning a championship was just about effort, Karl would have won 10 of them, no doubt in my mind. Even without a title, the Stockton-Malone connection remains one of the most iconic and celebrated duos ever to grace the league. And the next player was literally the best point guard of his era. In fact, without his presence on the court, they wouldn't have won the championship. Magic Johnson, the showstopper. He was a phenomenon, a showstopper who revolutionized the game with his unique blend of skill and charisma. Growing up, John Stockton idolized Magic, someone he viewed as the gold standard for how a point guard should play the game. And when John finally entered the NBA and had the chance to face him, it was nothing short of surreal. Magic was like a conductor out there. He could control a game with just one pass, John once said with admiration. At 6'9", Magic defied convention for point guards, using his size to dominate the floor in ways previously unseen. His flashy passes, constant energy, and infectious smile gave fans and players alike a reason to love the game. But for Stockton, what truly stood out wasn't just his physical gifts. It was his mind. He saw the court like a chessboard, seemingly operating a step ahead of everyone else on it. John would later recall how every move Magic made, every no-look pass, every fast break was calculated and deliberate. He made it look so easy, but everything he did was next level, Stockton said in an interview. And from the day Magic entered the league in 1979 as the first overall pick by the Los Angeles Lakers, it was clear that the NBA had gained a rare talent. His early years in the league were defined by a sense of wonder, and his rookie season ended with one of the most iconic performances in NBA history as he stepped up to play center in Game 6 of the 1980 NBA Finals in the absence of Kareem. Magic scored 42 points, grabbed 15 rebounds, and dished out 7 assists, leading the Lakers to an NBA championship and cementing his legend before his career had even truly begun. And as Stockton began to carve out his own career with the Utah Jazz, Magic's shadow always loomed large. The two were very different players. Stockton was quiet and clinical, while Magic played with flair and an undeniable sense of showmanship. And yet, John never felt intimidated. Instead, he saw Magic as the ultimate benchmark, the player he aspired to measure up against. Whenever Utah faced off against the Lakers, Stockton relished the challenge of going head-to-head with the man who had defined what a point guard could be. Magic was always 2 or 3 moves ahead, Stockton said. He'd throw passes you didn't even think were possible. By the time you reacted, the ball was already in the basket. And despite his dominance, John never backed down. He studied Magic's game obsessively, from how he read defenses to how he communicated with his teammates on the floor. His own precision as a passer and ability to control the tempo of a game were undoubtedly influenced by those intense battles with Magic. And beyond the court, they shared a mutual respect that went deeper than basketball. During an interview years later, Magic praised Stockton for his consistency, calling him one of the purest point guards the game had ever seen, and John, in turn, admired Magic not just as a player, but as a leader. His ability to unite his team and elevate their play in crucial moments left a lasting impression on Stockton. And that leadership was on full display during the Lakers' iconic Showtime era, as Magic led LA to 5 NBA championships throughout the 1980s. And one moment that still stands out in Stockton's memory took place in the 1988 Western Conference semifinals, where Utah pushed the defending champion Lakers to a grueling 7-game series. John and Magic went toe-to-toe in a battle of wits and wills each trying to outmaneuver the other on every possession. Though the Lakers ultimately prevailed, Stockton walked away with a deeper appreciation for Magic's greatness. You hate losing, but when you're up against someone like Magic, you can't help but respect it, Stockton admitted. He learned from those experiences, absorbing the nuances of Magic's game and using them to elevate his own performance. And off the court, their relationship became even more profound in 1992 when both players joined the fabled Dream Team for the Barcelona Olympics. Magic, by then retired following his shocking HIV diagnosis, was making a comeback to represent the United States on the greatest basketball stage in history. John cherished the opportunity to play alongside his idol, not just competing with him, but learning from him as a teammate. Being on the same team as Magic, seeing how he uplifted everyone just by being himself, was incredible, Stockton recalled. And as Magic's playing career officially came to an end, Stockton continued to carry the lessons he learned from facing and teaming up with him throughout his own career. His legacy as a leader and a competitor deeply shaped Stockton's perspective on the game. Even after John retired as the NBA's all-time leader in assists and steals, he never hesitated to credit Magic for inspiring him. Magic changed the game. He showed the world what was possible for a point guard, and he made us all want to raise our level. For John, Magic wasn't just an opponent. He was a mentor, an inspiration, and a reminder of what made basketball magical in the first place. Isaiah Thomas, the ultimate competitor. Standing just 6'1", Thomas wasn't physically imposing, but what he lacked in height, he more than made up for with grit, skill, and an unrelenting will to win. For John, Isaiah was the embodiment of everything he respected about basketball. A fearless warrior who played every game like it was his last. He was a fighter, John once said. He played with so much heart, and you couldn't really rattle him. But his journey to greatness was anything but easy. And before becoming the point guard who orchestrated back-to-back NBA championships in 1989 and 1990 with the infamous Detroit Pistons, Thomas endured a childhood filled with adversity. Growing up in the rough neighborhoods of Chicago, Thomas used basketball as his escape, finding solace on the court, even in the face of personal challenges. And when Isaiah entered the NBA in 1981 as the second overall pick for the Detroit Pistons, the league quickly discovered he was no ordinary rookie. While many questioned whether a guard of his size could withstand the physical demands of NBA basketball, Thomas wasted no time proving the doubters wrong. From day one, he showed an uncanny ability to control the game, blending lightning-quick handles with scoring finesse and visionary playmaking. Stockton watched with admiration as Thomas consistently rose above his competition, often dominating games against much larger opponents. And what set Isaiah apart, Stockton believed, was his ability to not just compete, but thrive in the face of chaos. Isaiah could take over a game whenever he wanted, and he always seemed to step up in the biggest moments, Stockton recalled. And it was true. Thomas's performances in high-pressure situations became legendary. His ability to dig deep and rise to the occasion, delivering when it mattered most, spoke volumes about his competitive drive. And the late 80s marked the rise of the Bad Boy Pistons, a team defined by their bruising physicality and aggressive defensive style. Led by Isaiah, they made life miserable for any opponent brave enough to step onto the court with them, particularly playoff rivals like the Boston Celtics, the Lakers, and Chicago Bulls. For many, the defining moment of Isaiah's career came during Game 6 of the 1988 NBA Finals against the Lakers. Playing on a severely sprained ankle, Thomas put together one of the gutsiest performances in league history, dropping 25 points in a single quarter to keep his team alive in the series. John, like the rest of the basketball world, was in awe. That was Isaiah. Nothing could take him out of the game. He'd find a way to stay on the court and make an impact no matter what, John said. Even though the Pistons would ultimately lose that series, his sheer determination cemented his reputation as one of the toughest players to ever play the game. And despite the many battles Stockton and the Utah Jazz had against Thomas's Pistons, there was always a mutual respect between the 2 point guards. And over the years, their battles were intense, with both guards serving as the engines of their respective teams. But Stockton never counted Thomas out, no matter how challenging the situation on the court became. And for all his on-court brilliance, Thomas's ability to lead through adversity defined his legacy. John pointed to the Pistons' 2 championships in 1989 and 1990 as a testament to Thomas's grit and genius. Those years saw Detroit overcome some of the most formidable opponents in NBA history, including Magic's Lakers and MJ's ascended Bulls. But what John admired most about Isiah wasn't just the championships or the stats. It was his heart. He respected how Thomas never allowed his size to be an excuse or a limitation. In a league filled with towering forwards and bruising centers, his toughness made him stand out. No matter the odds, he attacked the game with no fear that John couldn't help but admire. He played with so much heart, John said. Even when it felt like he was overmatched, he just wouldn't stop fighting. That mentality earned my respect. It wasn't just the battles on the court that defined their respect for each other. It was the way both approached the game. For John, Isiah was a symbol of perseverance, a reminder that greatness isn't solely about talent, but about what you're willing to put into the game when everything's on the line. And through these players, John Stockton found inspiration and camaraderie that defined his career. Each of them brought something unique to the game, leaving an indelible mark on Stockton's journey as one of the NBA's all-time greats. Their influence stretched far beyond stats. They fueled the competitive spirit and passion that made him a true legend. All right, that's all for today. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one.